What's going on, people? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown, here for episode number 103 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast. Man, delighted to be joined as always by the main man here in the building. My father, we're ready to cook. Laurie from AFTV is in the house. Shout out to everybody, man. We're ready to do another show. Laurie, how you doing, man?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. A little bit colder in the past couple of days, isn't it? Weather's changing. Clock's gone back last week, and I've noticed quite a significant difference in the temperatures, man. It's definitely getting colder. And a bit more rain as well. So, yeah, gonna have to start wrapping up, everybody. Winter's coming.
Winter's coming for real, man. A bit of boxing, as we know. We've got a bit to talk about today. As you guys know, man, we do the live stream. And any of you guys that enter the chat, hit the like button on the way in, smash the like button, man. Share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're going to cook on a few topics today, and we'll have a look at your comments. Even if we can't read them all, we'll definitely flash them up. And
smash that like button, you tossers.
Smash that like button, man. Hit that like button. And let's get straight into it, man. My bro, Ian Hamilton, is here in the building. Big up to Francisco as well. They're ready to get cracking. So let's get straight into it, man. Let's kick off with the weekend review. Last weekend, we'll start off with Lomachenko, who fought Jermaine Ortiz. Lomachenko winning a unanimous decision. Very good fight for me. Competitive fight. I thought that Jermaine Ortiz definitely didn't disgrace himself. He went in there and he probably did more than not just disgrace himself. I know some people that thought he did enough to win. Now, I scored it 7-5 for Lomachenko. I thought that Jermaine Ortiz did very well earlier on, faded a little bit towards the end. And that's where Lomachenko kind of pulled away in the championship round. Jermaine Ortiz had never gone the whole full distance before, and I think it kind of showed a little bit. But there were some people out there that thought, he pushed Loma all the way, could have even got a bit more than what he got. One of the scorecards was ridiculous, but nevertheless, it's a win for Lomachenko. It puts him right up there with Devin Haney now for them two to meet next. Devin Haney went in the ring, confronted Lomachenko in the ring. So that looks like it could happen next. But your thoughts on Lomachenko's performance and how you scored the fight, considering he was off for like about a year, and the rest of it. Your thoughts on the fight?
Well, you know what? You say he's off for a year, but a lot of the top fighters are not fighting any more than once, twice a year anyway. So I'm not going to give him an excuse for that one. Listen, I thought he won the fight, first and foremost. I thought he just about scraped through. He lost most of the early rounds. And in effect, he won most of the later rounds. There was a couple maybe swing rounds in there. And yes, there were some people that were saying that Ortiz did enough to win it. I personally thought that Lomachenko did enough to pull it out. It was a decent performance because you got to remember he was in against a young, unbeaten prospect who was trying to seize the opportunity of a lifetime. And I thought Jermaine Ortiz would push him, and he did exactly that because I've seen Ortiz fight before. He basically retired Jamel Herring in the fight before, and I watched that fight live, and he beat Jamel Herring up in that fight, trust me. So I knew this was going to be a more than reasonable test for Lomachenko. And I thought he started pretty slowly, as he always does. Seemed to take him a while to work out what he needed to do. He needed to get inside, let his hands go, all of those things he wasn't doing in the early rounds. But as the fight went on, he did that. He managed to land a couple of decent shots, gain Ortiz's respect. And when Ortiz, as you said, he slowed down a little bit, I thought Lomachenko probably won it down the stretch, if I'm being honest. But it wasn't an overly impressive performance, I've got to say.
Yeah.
It was decent, but it wasn't overly impressive.
Just looking at this comment here from Daniel White. He says here, evening, lads. Ortiz did well. Maybe looked better as Loma was probably a bit rusty. I'd like to see Ortiz against some of the other young guns. Who would you like to see Ortiz fight next? Good question. There is some good fighters over there at lightweight, as we all know. Shout out to my man Harvey in the building. I see you, bro. Jermaine Ortiz, I mean, yeah, I think there's quite a lot of upside for him after he lost that fight. And what was funny to me was Lomachenko, when he won, he gave back that NABF belt He was like, I don't want this guy. Hey, take the... Did you think that was disrespectful, or did you think that was like fair play to Loma for that? Before we answer.
No, I didn't think it was disrespectful. I didn't think it was disrespectful. I did think, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure Jermaine Ortiz not going to want that belt, is he? Because he's not really won it. I think he felt he was being magnanimous. And that's the reason why you don't do things like that, because people can interpret it in different ways. I must admit, I didn't think it was disrespectful, but I did think, what are you doing? You know what I mean? That's what I thought when he did that. So yeah, that's what I think about that. I think in terms of future opponents for Ortiz, what he's done there with a performance like that, he's put his name out there, and even more so than when he beat up Jamel Herring. He's announced himself for real now on the world stage. So I'm sure his next fight will be against a decent opponent that will hopefully earn him a good money and you know, spot in the rankings, because he's definitely a contender based on what we saw the other day. When you think that was his first really big fight, second big opponent, really. And he did well, very well.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, you know, lightweight and, you know, you've got Kambosos, obviously he just lost to Haney. Would that be a good comeback fight for him to go up against somebody like Jermaine Ortiz, who, you know, held his own against Lomachenko? What about
that style is all wrong for Kambosos. If you're Kambosos, you don't want no one else like that. I mean, he's been in with someone like Haney, tall, good jab, good mover. If you're Kambosos, that's the last thing you want to see. You want someone slow and plodding, who hopefully can't punch. That's what Kambosos wants. Kambosos will probably take some time out. He's had...
Well, he said he would.
Yeah, he's had about 3 paydays back to back, 3 big fights. He's lost 2 of those convincingly. He's going to want to regroup now. He's kind of in a similar situation as Anthony Joshua kind of thing, isn't it? Where you've had those big back-to-back fights and lost them both convincingly. Well, Kambosos needs to be careful with his next moves, to be honest. He doesn't want no killers in his next fight.
Isaac Cruz is an option, maybe for what about Rolly Romero? He could be an option for Jermaine Ortiz. One of them fights.
I kind of like Ortiz in that fight, to be honest with you.
Well, against who?
Against Rolly Romero. I think he's way more skilled. Okay, maybe doesn't punch as hard as either Isaac Cruz or Rolly Romero, but he's got the skill set to beat both of them, if you ask me.
They're both Puerto Rican, aren't they? Both got Puerto Rican descent, both of them.
I think Jermaine Ortiz is Dominican Republic.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not a bad shot.
Whereas Rolly Romero, he's Cuban background. So he's not Puerto Rican. Yeah, he's Cuban.
Okay.
But I mean, it's, you know, it's an Hispanic connection nevertheless. So those fights do tend to do well. They're like local derby fights, aren't they? But yeah, I was very impressed with the skill set. Like I said, as I was when he fought Jamel Herring, I thought he moves well. He's got a good jab, throws good punches. He's not the hardest puncher, which is why I said on your show last week, which was probably why Lomachenko selected him for this fight, and given the fact that he used to spar him, or he sparred him a lot in the past. But listen, from what I saw there and what I saw in the Herring fight, he's definitely got a future in the lightweight division. He's also quite big for the weight as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He's significantly bigger than Lomachenko. I think his future's bright, if you ask me.
What about Haney against Loma? Because that is what looks like it's going to be on the horizon for the undisputed lightweight championship. Our man Harvey here, he says that Haney beats Loma. Do we agree? I have to say yes. I think right now, and this is not just a reactionary response to Loma's performance against Ortiz. I just thought that over the last year or so, Haney's maturing. He's getting better. Loma, he's had a long career. Talent-wise, he's unbelievable. Obviously, he's a generational talent, Lomachenko is, and what he's achieved is almost unrivaled. Do you know what I mean? Not many people have achieved what he has as an amateur and as a pro together. So I just think right now, though, it's a young man's game. I think Haney is growing. Like I said, he's maturing. He's getting better. He's got the style to, really frustrate Loma. He's a lot bigger than him. Loma even pointed that out in the post-fight interview. I just think now would be the right time, especially after seeing Loma lose to Ortiz. I think Haney's better than Ortiz, and I think he could do a better job at that. So I wouldn't write Loma off completely, though, because, he's, like I said, he's capable of pulling out a spectacular performance. But I just think right now the time would be right for Haney to take down Loma.
I disagree with you slightly there. You said he's pulling out a spectacular performance. I haven't seen that from him for a while, to be honest.
Well, I think that the Nakatani one, he was pretty spectacular in that.
He was very good in that. Okay, I'll give you that one. But people were really going overboard when he fought Commey. Maybe because there was a knockdown or so in there. Maybe because they got fooled when Loma was saying, "Oh, stop the fight" and all that. But I wasn't overly impressed because Richard Commey, he's tough and he's willing and all the rest of it, but he's not the most skilled, and he's there to be hit, isn't he? He's quite stationary. He's not got no foot movement. He was kind of made for Lomachenko in a way. And there was no way Lomachenko was going to lose that fight. That was the perfect opponent for him. This time he's gone in there with somebody a bit younger, a bit more ambitious, way more skilled, and he struggled, as we saw. So, listen, I said from way back that I think that Haney would beat Lomachenko. Too tall, too young, too fast, too ambitious. But you are right in what you say that Lomachenko, he's not just going to give it up, is he? He's still got enough left to make it a difficult night for Haney. He will win some rounds, but I just can't see him winning 7 rounds. And I don't think he's going to stop Haney either. So I would definitely make Haney a favourite, although I would stop short of saying it's going to be an easy fight. I saw some people on social media and YouTube and stuff putting out videos saying, yeah, easy work for Haney. No, I don't think so. It might be fairly comfortable because we know Loma's a notoriously slow starter. He always seems to have done that throughout his career. But once he kicks into gear and once he sort of makes the adjustments and closes the distance, which is what he likes to do, he does get better and better. But I just think that Haney's kind of all wrong for him at this stage of his career, man. Like I said, too long, great jab, tall, good mover, good boxer, young, ambitious. You know what I mean? He's going to be in fantastic shape for that fight, as you can imagine. I just can't see Loma beating him, man. I just can't see it. The only way I could see it is if he was to knock Haney out. But Lomachenko is a decent puncher at lightweight, but he's not a big puncher, is he?
No.
So...
Got some comments here. Mohammed says here, Daryl, Laurie won't give you another interview because you're asking him difficult questions. We're going to touch on that a bit later.
Well, I'm definitely not going to call you Hotoza because you're my son. So,
yeah. We'll
so I'm definitely not going to be rude.
Got a bit to say about that. Daniel Chambers says Haney beats Loma as well. Ian says, don't forget Usyk didn't look great against Chisora and sucked AJ into a false sense of security. Just saying Loma might be playing chess with Haney.
Yeah, but I wouldn't regard that as chess, though. A lot of people thought he lost the fight. I mean, you know, it's not like he was comfortable and then he relaxed and maybe made it a bit too much of a contest. He was losing the first half of this fight. And then he had to, you know what I mean, dig down and come back into it. So, no, I'm not buying that playing chess stuff. Listen, I'm sure the motivation level will go up, won't it, once he's fighting Haney for the title. But then that's commensurate because Haney is going to be super motivated for this fight as well. Can you imagine Devin Haney? I mean, he's now got the confidence of being champion. He's gone into Kambosos' backyard twice, beating him, got all the belts. He's now the champion. That in itself, you speak to any boxer and they say that when you become champion, your confidence level goes up levels, you know what I mean? So, and then on top of that, you're going to be fighting Lomachenko, the biggest fight of your life. You know what I mean? I can imagine Haney's going to be in crazy shape for that fight. He's going to be crazy motivated.
What about the weight? What about the weight?
I think I did mention this before on your show last week. I don't think that it could have been them going to Australia. I don't know. But I don't think Haney did the weight as well as he should have done because he didn't look good in that last weigh-in, did he? Against Kambosos, although he did rehydrate well.
Yeah.
But the fight before that, he definitely did the weight a lot better. So there might have been something there whereby they got certain things wrong and he had to crash it. Or it could be that he's growing as a man and he finds it extremely difficult to make lightweight. But if it's going to be his next fight, though, I would imagine that they will have everything down pat, won't they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't see that being an issue because it's not like he missed the weight. He looked a bit gaunt, or more than a bit gaunt. He looked gaunt. But I would imagine for this fight, though, this is his showcase fight. Forget about winning the title. This is the most important fight of his life so far. Now you won the belts. Now you got to defend them. His whole future is going to depend on this, because if he was to lose to Lomachenko, that would be a massive disappointment for Devin Haney's career, especially when you think that he's been calling out Loma for years now. You know what I mean? So I just can't see them messing that up, man. I think he's going to come in fantastic shape, crazy confidence, and I think he's going to win more rounds than Lomachenko. Basically, that will be the game plan. Yeah. Put as many rounds as he can in the bank. You know that Lomachenko will, at some point, he's a great fighter, so he's going to win some rounds. He's going to come into it. He's not going to give up or anything like that. But I just think that Devin Haney, too young, too long, too skillful, and will just have too much on the night.
Let's not forget that this would be Haney's last fight under Top Rank, because he had to pretty much sign a 3-fight deal in order to get the undisputed fight with Kambosos. Literally gave up everything for that to happen. Lomachenko, as we know, is a long-term staple of Top Rank. We know who they're going to want to win that fight. So could that be an issue with Haney, fighting Loma in what would be his last fight under Top Rank? Lomachenko being the guy that they'd want to win. Could we see something there? I mean, Loma would be obviously motivated himself, as Ian is putting in here. But, I don't think it's as, cut and dry as some people I saw online make it out to be, after that performance. We tend to be quite reactionary. I would still favor Haney, but I wouldn't count Loma out either.
Yeah, listen, he is a great fighter, so and has been a great fighter. So you definitely can't count him out. But what I'm saying is all the factors in this fight lead towards Devin Haney. Like I said, the age, you know what I mean, the point in time of their careers, the fact that Loma has been off, has had injuries, has had a couple of losses. I just think that Devin Haney at this stage in his career is just too much, man. Boxing fundamentally is a young man's sport. And when you've got a force of nature like Devin Haney, who at the moment, he's not even reached his prime yet, has he? Let's be honest. He's not reached his prime. He's got the kind of mindset that I really like, actually. The kind of mindset, he doesn't seem like he's going to be too overconfident or too flushed with his own success. So he seems like quite a down-to-earth guy. A confident but down-to-earth person at heart. He's got his dad in his corner, keeping him grounded. He's not the kind of guy that's going to be out partying and doing silly things in the lead up to that fight, man. You know what I mean? He's probably back in the gym already. So listen, man, I just can't see Loma beating him. And and that's no disrespect to Loma. I just think the timing is right for Devin Haney. He wanted this fight for a long time. He's obviously studied Lomachenko up close and personal. He really believes he can beat him. And I think you're seeing the progression of Devin Haney. I mean, in that last fight against Kambosos, he was noticeably that he did, even though we talked about him not doing the weight very well, but he looked strong in there, didn't he? At no time did Kambosos hurt him or have him looking particularly uncomfortable or anything like that. He bossed that fight.
Kambosos. It's not Loma.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm talking more about his physicality. He looking like he's strong at that weight, man. He's only 23. Was he 23?
Yeah, 23.
Yeah, he's getting to that age where he's really starting to believe in his physicality now, and and he's got that long jab, man, and the good footwork and the reflexes. You know what I mean? All those things are wrong for Loma, who's quite small for a lightweight, not got a long reach. I mean, you saw Lomachenko's reaction. I thought that was a bit of a giveaway, actually, in there when he was talking about how big Haney was. That didn't sound like somebody that was pretty confident to me. Did you?
Yeah, it's a bit.
That's the kind of thing that even if you thought that, you keep that to yourself. You know what I mean? The fact that he expressed it so openly like that, you're giving the other guy confidence when you say that. He's going to stick out his chest when he sees you next time, man, and really put it on you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, I can't see it.
Yeah.
I do think it will be a good fight, though, because like I said, Lomachenko is a great fighter, and he has enough skills left to make the fight competitive. And if Devin Haney was to get too in love with himself during fight, then he could find himself facing a battle because, like I said, Lomachenko's going to give it everything, but I just don't think it will be enough.
Okay. Daniel Chambers says here, let's not forget Loma ducked Haney when he was mandatory, vacated the WBC belt. Yeah, I remember that. A lot of people don't want to touch on that, but that did actually happen. Haney has been calling out Lomachenko for a long time. So it's not like he was forced into this. He definitely wants it. So we'll see how that evolves. But there was some action over, over, where was that? Where was the Katie Taylor fight? Was that over here? That went in Ireland, was it? That was over in London. Yeah. Let's move on to
the O2. That was at the O2.
Was that the O2? Was it? Yeah.
No, Wembley. Was that Wembley?
Was that Wembley? Yeah, it was in London anyway.
Yeah.
Katie Taylor adding another win, notching another win on her record. I don't think that was in any doubt. The big shock of the night, or I don't know if it was that much of a shock to some people, but Kiko Martinez knocking out Jordan Gill at 36 years old. He rolls on. I have to admit, I didn't have much interest in this card. I knew Katie Taylor was going to win. I thought that Gill would overcome Martinez. I didn't think he'd have anything left really, but he's still proven me wrong. So all in all, it turned out to be better than I expected. But yeah, your thoughts on Katie Taylor, her performance, and Kiko Martinez?
It was Katie Taylor's win was quite perfunctory, really, wasn't it? If anything, it just highlighted how good the Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall fight was, because this was very pedestrian, man. I mean, I've got to say, her opponent was unbeaten, of something like 19-0, a champion and stuff like that. But I have to say, Daryl, that her skill set left a lot to be desired, man. You know what I mean? I didn't enjoy watching the fight, if I'm being honest. It was the same thing round after round. I became disinterested very quickly, if I'm being honest with you, man. I was struggling to stay focused watching that fight because the Argentinian girl had absolutely no chance. You know what I mean? She was way out of her depth. And yeah, it was not much to really say. I mean, Katie Taylor is levels above the girl that she was fighting. And I didn't really enjoy it as a spectacle. Maybe we've been spoiled recently by some of the women's fights that have been taking place. But that one was very pedestrian, very mediocre, and I couldn't wait for it to finish because we all knew. Listen, from the first round, you saw what was going to happen. You knew that Katie Taylor weren't going to stop her because the girl did look tough as well, to her credit. She came to fight, so you can't disrespect her for that. But the level of skill was very wide. You know what I mean? So much so that it wasn't really that competitive. And because Katie Taylor's not a big puncher, you know, like a lot of women's boxers are, to be fair to her, it just wasn't entertaining for me. It was just a procession of rounds.
I mean, look, we know Katie Taylor's 36 years old. We know she's coming out of her prime. I don't know how many fights she has left. The fact that she's still winning is obviously impressive. But Stefan's comment is pretty funny. But yeah, I just feel like, how much more left do you reckon there will be? Because these type of fights, man, it didn't get me going, didn't get you going. Like, really, Katie Taylor's beaten a lot of the people around her in her weight. There's not really a significant. I mean, maybe Bam Gardner could she move up? She's super featherweight, isn't she? Could she move up and fight Katie Taylor one day?
Yeah, she said she's wanted to fight. Michaela Mayer said she wants to fight.
There's the rematch with Amanda Serrano that looks like it's going to happen next in Ireland. I don't know, man.
I was kind of watching that fight, and I was thinking to myself, it looks to me like they put that fight on so soon after the Clarissa Shields fight and Savannah Marshall. I think what they were hoping is that Katie Taylor would put on a devastating performance. So then they could say, well, actually, she is the pound for pound number one. She is the GOAT. Look what she's done here. You know what I mean? But it just didn't work. It was a very flat atmosphere. Just the whole thing, man. It was just, I used the word mediocre. That kind of, it summed it up for me, man. Even Katie Taylor didn't seem to rise to the occasion for me. Don't get me wrong, she won at a canter. But it was nothing to be entertained from, was it? I mean, the Argentinian girl could barely throw her punches properly, man. At times, it was quite cringy to watch. I'm being honest. I couldn't wait for it to finish. And it's not often you'll hear me say stuff like that, you know what I mean? And I say that with respect. I know it doesn't come across as mad respectful, but I say that with respect. I found it hard to watch because it was one very talented boxer in with another boxer that wasn't very good at all, but was tough and willing, and went the distance.
She had to fight her though, because she was a mandatory, wasn't she?
Yeah, I mean, I guess really what that tells us is what we kind of knew already, which is that women's boxing, although we do like watching it and it can be very entertaining and it has some excellent fighters, we have to be honest and say that the talent pool in women's boxing is not that great. It's not that deep. And you saw that on Saturday because this was a mandatory challenger and she looked pretty ordinary. Let's be clear.
What about the rematch with Serrano? Do you think that should take place in Ireland, or do you think it should be at MSG again? Personally, for me, I think it should be in Ireland. Katie Taylor won the first fight. They're having a rematch for, you know, all the belts. Katie Taylor's got them. She will be the A side in this rematch. I think that she should have her homecoming in Ireland, for sure.
Yeah, she should. Whether the fight in Ireland will generate enough money, it will generate enough ticket sales, I would have thought, but will it, you know, will the powers that be put up the money to stage it in Ireland? I don't know. I hope so. She deserves it. It was a very close fight, last one. I personally thought Serrano should have got the nod, but then it seems that you're never going to get a decision over Katie Taylor, isn't it? So there you go. But yeah, another fight would be warranted, 100%.
Yeah.
Got to say as well that Amanda Serrano didn't look that good in her last fight.
No, she didn't.
But,
she didn't. No.
But then that could have been, likewise, that could have been the opponent as well. Sometimes if you're not being tested, you can kind of come down to the level of your opponent somewhat. But yeah, I saw her last fight as well. And that was quite difficult to watch too, to be honest. So
story of the night was definitely Kiko Martinez knocking out Jordan Gill. Was you surprised with that? Because Jordan Gill don't have the best chin, and we know Martinez can punch, but Gill was the strong favorite going in here.
Yeah, you know what it is though? I think it was the way he did it, where he just kind of just walked through him and just absolutely ripped him apart. Knocked him down. How many times was it? I stopped counting after about 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I mean, he just absolutely decimated him. And when you think that Kiko Martinez, he's been coming over here fighting since like the mid to late 2000s, like 2008, 9, wasn't it? He was losing to Rendell Munro. You know what I mean? And now here we are in 2022, he's bashing up one of our young contenders. I don't know how he does it, man. I don't want to like be too controversial, man, but I don't know how he does that, bro. I mean, for somebody of that age, especially operating in those lighter weights, that is ancient. You know what I mean? That is ancient. I mean, like the equivalent for welterweight upwards, you'd be about 40, mid-40s doing that. You know what I mean? And here he is absolutely walking through guys that are young enough to be his son. I don't know how he does it, bro. And maybe I shouldn't, you know. Maybe I should. I don't know, man. Put it this way, it's an amazing achievement. You got to say that.
What happens next then, really? I mean, Kiko Martinez rolls on. Gill, I mean, back to the drawing board for him.
Yeah, I mean, Gill will no doubt pass it off and say, listen, man, I got beaten by a great fighter. A very unique and special fighter, because what happened the other night to Gill doesn't normally happen like that. You know what I mean? So you've got to take your hat off to Martinez and say he's a unique one-off fighter. I think there has to be certain question marks against Gill's chin, because he's been on the floor a few times now in his career, hasn't he? He's a very good boxer, good athlete, but when he gets clipped, he does tend to go over.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the fact that he went over, it's just physically and, you know, I mean, everything else. Martinez just walked through it.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a worry there for Gill. But he'll come back. You know what I mean? He's a young man. I'm sure he's not going to call it a day off the back of a loss like that, because, you know, Martinez will go down as one of the all-time greats for that weight, won't he? Let's be honest. Yeah. So, yeah, Gill, I do feel sorry for him, man, because this was going to be his coming out party after that last performance. Amazing where he got off the floor and knocked the guy out with a punch like that. Amazing. So he would have thought of this as, you know, me stepping up my level, showing now this is going to be my coming out party. And instead of that, he gets absolutely ruined. So he's probably in a bit of a bad place right now. But listen, man, he's a young man. He's very skillful. He's got a good coach with manager Dave Caldwell. And I'm sure they'll try and navigate his way back.
Anything else that stand out to you before we move on? There was obviously Jordan Reynolds.
Johnny Fisher.
Luton boy, Jordan Reynolds. So big up him. He was on the undercard that night. Johnny Fisher, of course. Ellie Scottley was in action. So anything else stand out to you before we move on?
Yeah, I guess we've got to talk about Johnny Fisher. He's got a lot of people talking about him, Mr. Bosch. Yeah, it's a good performance, man. But
yeah, where do you see Fisher getting to? It's early. I know we can't really judge too much, but I mean, obviously, right now he's not being fed like the sort of challenges where you can say, right, he's going to be world level. But I guess they're progressing him at a slower rate.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue too much with the opponent because that same opponent apparently took David Adelaide a lot longer. And David Adelaide is a bit more advanced in terms of how he's been brought along than Johnny Fisher. So that was a very impressive performance. I mean, I've got to be honest, the guy didn't look that good. But then you could say easily that Fisher didn't make him look that good. He said he was going to jump on him and be more aggressive, and that's exactly what he did. And when he caught him with those shots, man, you knew that it wasn't going to go very long, and it didn't. So you got to give him credit for that. So you are right. There is going to be that that issue on how quick or slow ever to bring him in along. You know what I mean? He can be a little bit difficult when you got a guy like that because he sells a lot of tickets. He's very popular. So you want to keep him fighting. But how long are we going to see him in fights like this? There's going to be the core people going to say, look, you got to step him up. You got to step him up. Then if you step him up too soon and he's not ready, it could, you know what I mean? It could unravel. So listen, he's going to have a few more fights like this in it for now. Maybe guys with a little bit more ambition, a little bit more resolve will be called to get the job. And but I can see him. I mean, let's be honest, man. He does look decent. He looks like he's improved. Yeah. He's got good coaches. With the Tibbs, Jimmy Tibbs, and his son Mark Tibbs. So listen, man, he's in good hands. And like I said, he's going to get the right fights, and he'll be developed, and he'll build his name. And I'm sure soon he'll become a household name. He's been making appearances on things like TalkSport and things like that. He's getting rave reviews. So yeah, man. I think it was it Eddie Hearn said biggest ticket seller since Ricky Hatton. He was saying. Well, if that's true, that's amazing for someone that's just started.
That's a huge compliment.
So, we know that in itself makes him a considerable asset to a promoter. Let's be honest.
Before we move on, there's a question here from Stefan, and he says here, bit off topic, but did you see that Sky have put Taylor versus Catterall on box office? Who the hell is going to buy that? Controversy aside, the first fight was a stinker. Well, I guess Sky are going to have to really put the promo wheels in motion for that one.
Did you say that now?
Everything's going to be on box office, man. Well, I don't know what's going on. We're in a cost of living crisis.
I've got to disagree with that he said it was a stinker. I mean, it wasn't a great fight.
It wasn't a great fight, though, was it? I mean, was it? No, listen, like,
it wasn't a rock'em sock'em fight, but it was.
Have you watched it again?
In that fight.
Have you watched it again?
But there's a lot of fights I don't watch again.
Yeah, but
the only time I
is like you're not going to run back to that fight, are you? You're not going to run back to that and watch it.
No, I wouldn't. I don't think it was a stinker, though. There was a lot of intrigue in that fight because there was a bit of ebb and flow, wasn't there? Because Catterall was winning most of the rounds, but then Josh Taylor came back quite strong, didn't he, in the later rounds and pushed him. So it was a good fight. I thought it was a good fight, man.
Yeah, but I disagree. Box office.
Now, I was responding to the comment saying it was a stinker. It definitely wasn't a stinker for me. I've seen stinkers, man. The Katie Taylor versus that girl that she fought, that was a stinker. This was and that was no fault of Katie Taylor. It's just that the opponent was pretty poor. Right, in terms of the box, well, you know my thoughts on this box office stuff, man. That is not to me, that is not a pay-per-view fight because Jack Catterall and even Josh Taylor, as much as I like Josh Taylor, he's not a pay-per-view fighter neither. No. So where they get that from, I just don't know. See, when they do things like this, man, they just encourage people to stream fights. You know what I mean? Because no one's going to voluntarily going to want to buy that fight unless you've got some kind of emotional connection with either Catterall or Josh Taylor. That is not a pay-per-view fight.
I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised they put that on box office.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then even if you go to the casuals in the street, no disrespect to Josh Taylor, but people don't know him like that, especially in this country. I could walk down my high street, man, and I guarantee you that if I asked 100 people who Josh Taylor, if they know Josh Taylor, he'd be lucky if 15 said yes. Let's be honest.
Polarizing figure as well, Josh Taylor. You know what I mean? Not really there for the, don't really care about the mainstream like that. So if you're trying to market yourself to the mainstream, I don't know, man. I'm not with the whole, this should not have been, that's a big L from Sky for me, putting this on.
And you've heard what I've just said about Josh Taylor. And again, no disrespect to him. I said if I walked down my high street, he'd be lucky 15 people knew him. I reckon if I mentioned Jack Catterall, it'd probably be less than 5. Because let's be honest, man, boxing is not a mainstream sport like that anymore. The only boxers that people seem to visibly recognize straight away would be the likes of your Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, and people like that. You know what I mean? So Jack Catterall and Josh Taylor, good luck with that one on pay-per-view. I mean, I know that there's an intense rivalry now that's developed since the first fight, so that will help sell it. So yeah, I guess there's that. But in terms of the two of them being pay-per-view fighters, no chance.
Shades of Nathan Cleverly, Tony Bellew too, the rematch in terms of the beef, and it being on pay-per-view. You know, and that was one of the worst pay-per-views. It was St. Eddie Hearn putting this on, but it was Eddie Hearn that put that on at the time. And that went down as one of the worst pay-per-views, you know, that was out really at the time. I'm not saying that this is on that level, but, you know, it's not for me pay-per-view. Ian Hamilton says he'll go to it, but let's not forget Ian Hamilton is up there in Scotland. So
no, listen, if I lived at that neck of the woods, I'd probably go to it because it's what I call a trade fight. It's not a casuals fight, is it? This is a trades fight. A lot of people in the trade, and when I say trade, I include you in this, Darren. You want to see that fight, don't you?
Yeah, I'll tune in for sure.
Yeah, because there was a lot of intrigue in that first fight, and then the fallout from the first fight, where there was a lot of recriminations, a lot of back and forth, a lot of trash talk between the two of them. There's clearly beef. I mean, it don't take much to get Josh Taylor aggravated anyway, but you can imagine Jack Catterall's clearly got under his skin. So it should be interesting next time, no doubt about it. In fact, let's be honest, man, we're looking forward to the second fight a lot more than we were looking forward to the first fight. And I you know, I make no bones about it. I like Josh Taylor as a fighter, but I thought Jack Catterall clearly won that fight. He was robbed. To me, that was a robbery. Yeah. Because there's fights that are close, yeah? And there's swing rounds and all the rest of it. There's fights that you can watch, a bit like the Michaela Mayer-Baumgartner fight the other day, where depending on what type of skill set you respect or, you know, I mean, what you prefer, you can make a case for either fighter winning, which is what I said with the Michaela Mayer-Baumgartner fight. I went for Baumgartner because I thought overall she displayed the better skills and her punching was a bit more precise.
Okay.
Other people preferred the work rate of Mayer or whatever, coming forward in the latter rounds. But in the Taylor-Catterall fight, man, I think most people who saw that fight were of the opinion that Jack Catterall won that fight by at least a couple of rounds to spare, 2, 3, maybe even 4 rounds.
Yeah, that's true.
To me, that entered into the realms of robbery.
Just don't think it warrants pay-per-view, man. I'll just underline it there. Don't think that really warrants.
Yeah, I think what the angle that Sky are coming from is that they're going to promote it as beef, aren't they? It's a grudge match, and they're going to, you know, they'll get them in the studio, they'll hype them up, and then there'll be the face-offs and the pushing and shoving and England versus Scotland and all that. So that's the angle I think they're going to go down. But I do agree with you. It's not in itself. It's not a pay-per-view fight. No chance.
How about this? How about this on pay-per-view, man? Fury against True Geordie. I want to get your
well, in the ring, Fury would absolutely slaughter him. But as we saw the other day, man, True Geordie got the better of him in that interview, man.
Yeah, just
So
wanted to
much
get
so
your
that Tyson Fury didn't even turn off the stream.
Just wanted to get your reaction on that particular interview, man, because a lot of people, including myself, watching that kind of applauded True Geordie in terms of the questions that he was asking Tyson Fury. Wasn't afraid, you know, like we know how a lot of these interviewers and, you know, boxing media tend to phrase their questions at fighters. They don't want to piss them off too much, because we saw at the end of the True Geordie video, Fury was like, I'm never going to interview you again. So I get it in terms of boxing media. They can't pull the strings that much because they can't allow themselves to, you know, blackball themselves with getting access to these fighters. But the reason why we all liked it was because True Geordie answered the questions, asked Fury the questions that we wanted him to ask. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think as well as that, Daryl, I think if you watch the interview, the whole interview, like I did, you could see that even as the interview started, you could see that Tyson Fury was a little bit tetchy towards True Geordie. And I think that's because he'd obviously got wind that True Geordie had, you know, lambasted the Chisora fight previously. So he might have had an idea of what was coming in terms of the questioning. So you could see he was a little bit off with him right from the start. Even some of the answers he gave to some of the other questions, like when he was asked about the Conor Benn thing, I thought Tyson Fury came across as a bit flippant and a little bit brusque. And there was that energy throughout the whole interview where you could see, man, that he was, it was simmering under the surface. And then obviously with the questions about the Chisora fight, obviously Tyson Fury thought, right, you know what, I'm going to let this guy have it. But to me, he done himself a bit of a disservice there, man. It kind of backfired a bit. I mean, first and foremost, I think that interview now that True Geordie did with Tyson Fury has got well over 1 million views, and it's got the whole boxing world and media world talking about it. And True Geordie's the one that's come out of that looking good, not Tyson Fury. Second thing to say is that you shouldn't really be surprised with this boorish behaviour from Tyson Fury, because this is what he does. I mean, somebody said to me the other day, I don't think it was you or somebody else said, oh, the mask is slipping. I'm like, no, it's not slipping. This is who he is. You know what I mean? He's been like this for a long time now. I think because he's on this winning streak, and he does have other sides to his character where he can be that kind of funny guy and, you know, that larger than life character, he tends to get away with it. So a combination of that and the winning record and him knocking people out, it's served him well. But listen, man, you can go back a long way. Tyson Fury's done this throughout his career. He's been that guy.
I'm really curious to see, you know, how boxing media, how they reacted to this privately, because they saw how everybody was praising True Geordie. They would have seen the comments on Twitter and everywhere else saying, finally, we're getting the real questions asked. You know what I mean? Like, none of this kiss ass and all this shit. Like, we're getting questions that we want to hear. Like, how are boxing media really reacting to that? You know, when they see comments like that, you know, because that basically is like a slight dig at them not doing their job properly in terms of getting the questions that we want answered from these fighters. They're holding these fighters to account. I mean, ID Boxing, credit to them. I saw one of their interviews with Frank Warren after the presser for Fury and Chisora, and they held Frank Warren to account. So it does happen, but it just don't happen often. An infamous example was when Eddie Hearn came under fire for the Conor Benn situation. IFL got granted access to interview him, and the interview was poor. I just have to be real. It was poor. It was more of like a PR stunt for Eddie Hearn to kind of say what he wanted. And, you know, a lot of people were frustrated after that, man. And I think True Geordie was a bit of a breath of fresh air, really, man. He's not claiming to be, you know, a boxing analyst like we are, but he asked Fury the questions that we wanted him to ask. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you have to, you make a good point there, but you also have to look at it logically and think that, listen, True Geordie's not a boxing channel. And he's very well established. He doesn't need Tyson Fury to blow up his spot like that. You know what I mean? He doesn't need the Tyson Fury interview to be big. He's already big, you know, and has been big for a number of years, which is obviously why Tyson Fury agreed to go on his channel, because he needs all the promotion he can get for that lackluster fight he's got coming up with Derek Chisora. It's just that he handled it all wrong. So yeah, people are making that sort of putting True Geordie and people like IFL in the same boat. Now, to be fair, IFL is run by Coogan, and as a lot of people on here will know, and you know, Coogan is my mate. But it's a very different model, what he's doing from what True Geordie's doing, isn't it? IFL have a business model that works very well for them. They have relationships with fighters. They interview fighters before and after fights. They attend press conferences. A lot of the stuff they do is not meant to challenge the fighters in that way. If you're looking for media that's going to challenge them and be more neutral, I guess you have to look to mainstream media. People like Gareth A. Davis. Now, he doesn't ask Fury any searching questions. So why are people putting it on people like Coogan, whose business model is way different from your established mainstream media, who they are the ones that you would look to be neutral and you know what I mean, and balanced and to expose things. You know what I mean? That's not Coogan's business model. So I think people are getting. I do hear what you're saying about sometimes the questions could be a bit more challenging. Yeah, but I'm not sure if you can hold him to task like the way you should be holding people like Gareth A. Davis and some of the mainstream media. I think it's a different business model, different concept.
It is. And like Stefan here, his comment, he's basically saying what you're saying as well. What I would say, though, is if I was, you know, boxing media, so to speak, I'd approach these questions like, look, man, I would do it in there is a way you can get your point across without being disrespectful. True Geordie wasn't disrespectful, but he was probing. And I feel like Fury was getting rattled after a while. I think if I was boxing media, yeah, just me, I would kind of phrase it like, look, man, you know, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Quite a lot of the box, I'm on Twitter, I'm on the socials. I see what the fans are saying, and a lot of them are suggesting that this, and this. Do you have a response to that? Do you know what I mean? So at least you're being respectful, but you're saying, look, man, there's been a bit of a backlash to this. The fans are saying this. Do you have a response for them with regards to that? I don't really see that often. I just hear like, oh yeah, you know, Fury he'll rabble on and then they'll just say, yeah, like, but they're not being really taken to task. There is a way to do it, man. There is a way.
There is a way, but like I said, I bring you back to what I said before. The business model. Listen, I used to work with Coogan, so I know their business.
I'm not just saying Coogan. I'm not just saying IFL either.
Yeah, I'm using IFL as an example because they are by far the biggest one out there when it comes to that type of concept. Yeah, that sort of YouTube boxing channel. And to your credit, I've spoken to you before. You said you don't want to go down that road. You want to be as independent as you can, and you've surmised that you'll be better off doing your stuff where you are rather than going out to because. The thing about Coogan and IFL, they depend on their relationship with the fighters. So if you're asking questions to the fighters that's going to piss them off and not want to give you interviews, then really your business model is pretty much done and dusted, isn't it? Because one thing I would say about fighters, I was saying this to somebody the other day, and I'd be interested to hear what you think. But this is my experience of fighters. So boxers, right, are very approachable. They are, without doubt, one of the most approachable sports people in sports, in professional sports. So by that, I mean, you can rock up to a boxer in the street or wherever and ask them for a selfie, or if you've got a camera and a microphone, say, oh, can I have a little few minutes of your time? And they will talk to you. You try that with a footballer, mate. Even if you catch them in your local shopper, they're not gonna do it because they've probably been told by the clubs not to do stuff like that. So it's very rare you're going to get a footballer in a one-on-one in a situation like that. And if you do, they'll politely say no. And that goes for a lot of the other sportsmen as well in different sports, you know what I mean? However, you get a boxer, you could talk to them and they'll be very approachable, very friendly. They'll take a picture. They'll say, yeah, no problem. Most of them anyway. The problem with the boxers is this is what I've noticed in my time of being around media and stuff like that, is if you then go elsewhere and criticize that boxer or say stuff that they don't deem as being fair or fair to them or whatever, you will find very quickly that they might turn on you. So the next time you see them, you say, no, man, no more interviews with you lot, man, because I heard your channel, you were saying I lost that fight or I didn't look good or whatever. I've seen this play out. I don't think that's good though. Like, I don't think that's a good thing. I think it's sensitive. Listen, I'm not defending it. I'm telling you how it works.
Yeah, I know how it works.
And the reason why I'm telling you is because I've seen it happen to Coogan. Like I've seen Coogan, he's tried to be objective, yeah, with certain people, and he's attempted to criticize or give his opinion on his channel and other channels. Then the next time he's come back to that particular fighter, man, they've given him a taste of his medicine for it. You know what I mean?
I don't think that's a good trait. I'm not saying, look, I'm not saying be disrespectful.
What's Shane going on about? I've never want to see Shane on this channel again.
Shane, man, big up Shane in the building, bro. But now, look, there is a way you can get your point across, and I guess it depends on, you know, the articulate of the interviewer. By the way, there are some good interviewers out there, but for me, I just feel like there is a way to get your point across without being disrespectful. In a way, like, look, Fury, you've beaten Chisora twice. Can you understand why some of the fans might believe that, you know, you could have fought someone better, maybe a Bacoli, maybe a this, maybe a that, without being disrespectful? And then he could just say what he has to say. And say,
yeah, but Daryl, that's what I'm saying. We're both right. You're right in what you're saying, but I'm saying to you that IFL and Coogan's business model is not built off that. It's to establish relationship with the fighters and get an insight into their world and stuff. He will occasionally throw in the more challenging question, but the business model is very different to your mainstream media. You're supposed to be independent. You are supposed to challenge. You are supposed to ask those harder questions. That's what they're tasked with. Coogan's business model, trust me, I know him very well, is very different. He's seeking to establish relationships with fighters, to get interviews before and after fights, catch-up interviews like, Daryl, how are you getting along? When's your next fight? So tell me what you've been. Very, very different. And people need to understand that.
Ian says here, did you see Ade's video? He gave I didn't watch it, but I heard about it. Right. I didn't watch that video.
I think even Ade's coming for some criticism, hasn't he? Because I think he's even said himself, I've heard him say on one of his shows that he's had to approach things different from when he was doing his show out of his green chair, in which I understand you've done a couple of shows with him, didn't you? Yeah. He's saying that now he's actually more involved in terms of mainstream media, hosting shows and interviewing fighters. He's had to approach things slightly different than when he was at home doing the stuff in his own studio and stuff. So we do need to take that into account. But yes, actually, you know, I mean, you are right. These fighters do need to be challenged and do need to be asked those tough questions, but I guess the forum has got to be right.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, look, we'll draw a line under that, really. I just thought it was a good, refreshing, but at the same time, I get it. Like a lot of people in the comments have been saying, True Geordie's income is not dependent on boxing. It's not boxing related. He'll make his money without that. So he can really
listen. True Geordie,
being right behind the web, being doing it a web interview as well. He's not in Fury's face. Different circumstances. I get it.
So when people are saying, "Oh, True Geordie, magnificent, well done," yeah, okay, but you got to remember it's a very different dynamic to what Ken and those guys are doing. Completely different. And True Geordie's not a boxing channel. And so it makes it very, you know what I mean? Let's say very easier for him to approach that interview in that manner than, say, Coogan or a Seconds Out or whoever, any one of those interviewers. You know what I mean? I've spoken to you and I'm going to call him out for this. I find some of the interviews that Radio Raheem gives, I think they're proper corny. They're trash for me. You know what I mean? A lot of them. But I can understand where he's coming from because, again, like Coogan, he's trying to develop a relationship with fighters. His channel, the way they operate, they need to get access to fighters. So if you're asking them tough questions all the time and pissing them off, then it's going to come as no surprise when you rock up to the likes of Canelo and all these guys one day. You've gone on. You imagine me trying to get an interview with Canelo, Daryl, after some of the things that I've said about it. Do you think he's going to give me the time of day if he even knew who I was? You know, I mean, it's funny because the other day I attended a show. This is real mad funny. I've got to tell you this. I attended a show. Shout out to Dan Miller from Boxer. He managed to get me some credentials for the Kayla Mayer and things. Well, you went with us to the actual fight. And I was at one of the events and I was doing some media stuff for DR Sports. And I came across Gareth Davis, and he actually tried to say hello to me. And I didn't say anything back. I just, walked on. I pretended like I didn't see him. Now, can you imagine if I got into a conversation with Gareth A. Davis? And he said, yeah, I've seen some of the stuff that you calling me Gareth Arsehole Davis and stuff like that. I've seen what you're saying. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying, man. The dynamic is very different. It depends on what road you want to go down.
Yeah. No, it is true. It is true. Some comments here. Big up Richard Hutchinson. He's put a few questions in here. He's put some predictions in there. We'll go through those, I'm sure. But one question that he's put here, which we're going to move on to next, was the Crawford live stream yesterday. So we'll get into that right now. But before we do, we'll answer your predictions that you've got here. I'll go first. Crawford, I've got Crawford, Spence, Dillian White, Fabio Wardley in a good fight. Bivol, we'll talk about that later. Prograis, and obviously Fury. So literally the first name that you've put there in every one of them, that's who I've got. What have you?
I agree with you on every one of those, except the last one. I'm going Chisora. No, you know what?
I hope he does it, but there's no chance he will. So yeah.
Where that's Spence versus Turan, I think that's Thurman, right?
Yeah, Furman. Yeah, Furman.
Yeah.
Furman.
Not the footballer Turan.
Not Lillian Turan.
Not boxing. Yeah. I'll tell you what's interesting. That Wardley Gorman's going to be.
Yeah, that's a good fight, man.
Yeah,
I like that.
I don't know, man. That could go either way.
Yeah, it could.
Because Wardley at the moment is looking good. He's a bit of a force of nature, but Gorman's decent. That could be 50-50. That could be one of those where I have to look at them on the scales and stuff to see, you know what I mean, before I make my decision. No, but that's what I'm saying. In previous fights, man, he's definitely carried too much weight. If I see him coming in looking like that, the Pillsbury Doughboy, then I'll probably go for Wardley. But if he's taking it seriously and got himself into decent shape, you got to say that his skill set is above that of a Fabio Wardley. Let's be honest.
So. I would say so.
The Zerdo versus Bivol fight, man, that's another 50-50 for me.
We'll get into that a bit later.
Okay.
But a couple of comments here before you talk about Bud. Francisco says here, Laurie, I think Canelo would love to share some tacos with you, and that Clem will help you.
I think if I saw Canelo walk into the room, man, I'd find an exit and walk back out, given some of the things I said about him. And again, he's another one, Daryl. You see what he's like. He's very sensitive to criticism. Yeah. You've seen that. You know what I mean? If you're not like totally praising him and being a real sycophant, he don't want to know. He can be very rude when he wants to with the press, Canelo. So, there you go. Yeah. I don't think I'll be sharing any tacos with him.
Your thoughts on this this Bud Crawford interview, tell-all interview he did. He went on Instagram Live for 20 minutes, spoke about the negotiations between him and Spence and why they're falling through at this stage, said they will resume next year, but basically put a lot of the blame on our Haymon. We spoke about this last week, saying we're pretty much at the end of the line with this now. It's kind of getting grating on our nerves with how this hasn't happened yet. But I thought it was an interesting interview because Crawford, for one, it wasn't an interview. It was really just a sit down with Crawford. He was just talking to the live. But what I found interesting is Crawford is not a very talkative guy. And, he really did, explain his side of the story as to what happened. I guess we can only take his version. We ain't really heard Errol Spence's. But do you really care? I mean, where are you?
You know what? I watched it in its entirety. And I must admit, I found it quite plausible what he said. And I was quite glad that he came out and said what he said. That was his version of it. I'd love to hear Spence's version, to kind of even things up and, get another point of view on it. But listen, he tried to explain himself. I thought he did a decent job. Obviously, we don't know 100% if what he's telling us is the truth because we have not spoken to the other people involved. But I must admit, he did come across as plausible. And I'm kind of glad that he took the effort to try and clear things up, certainly from his perspective. Like I said, now we need to hear Errol Spence because we're not going to hear from Al Haymon, that's for sure. With regards to the fight, man, like I said, I'm not that bothered personally, to me, this was a sad indictment on boxing. A fight that would have elevated boxing to such a high degree that's not happened is sad on boxing. And it's just a damning indictment on everybody involved. And Crawford's got to take his share of the blame on that as well. Because like I said, at the end of the day, Daryl, me and you both know that if the two fighters really, really wanted that fight to happen, they would have humbled themselves, took a little bit less and made it happen. The fact that they didn't make it happen, they have to cop some of the blame for it as far as I'm concerned. Not just Crawford, Spence as well. So it's a sad indictment on boxing. It's embarrassing when you compare it to other sports, other combat sports like MMA and stuff like that. They always seem to get their fights done, and boxing doesn't. But that being said, like, fair play to Terence Crawford for trying to explain his side of the story. Whether you believe him or not, it's going to be down to the individual. Like I said, he did sound plausible to me. But as far as the actual fight is concerned, it's getting to that stage now, Darryl, where I really don't care anymore. Because I'm almost thinking like the ship sailed. Crawford's, 35? He's taking another fight now. How do we even know he's going to beat Avanesian or look that good? Supposing he fights Avanesian, Darryl, and either he doesn't win or he looks so bad that you're thinking, you know what, I don't even want to see the Errol Spence fight. You know what I mean?
I think that's the danger.
That's the danger, isn't it?
I think that's the danger now, yeah. And one thing that you
not
said,
only that, just to finish off my point, you've got some other young guns on the horizon now. It's interesting because a few weeks ago you would have included Conor Benn in that new crop.
No, you would have included Conor Benn.
Well, okay, all right, yeah, okay. But you've got the likes of Boots Ennis and Ortiz and Stanionis and one or two other guys that are coming through, man. So let's see them fight for the titles. You know what I mean? It's getting serious. It's getting to that stage where I'm really not that bothered if I see Spence and Crawford anymore. I would watch it, of course I would. But if they don't fight, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, Daryl.
Yeah, like I said, we're at this stage, we've waited a whole year. You've held up the welterweight division. Let some of these young guys come through, man. You guys have failed to deliver. We've waited for 3-4 years for this fight now. Still nothing. Stop holding up the division, man. Like, if you're not going to fight, move on. Let the other cats fight for the belts, man. They're waiting. They're hungry. They want some of the action. And it's not fair on them. They've waited patiently throughout this whole year to get this fight done. We thought, you know what, Crawford, no longer with Top Rank. Now we're going to see it. We've wasted a whole year at 100, literally wasted a year at 147 pounds because of these two. So, at this stage, man, like, I like both of them a lot, but it's not fair on the other cats. And I feel like let them fight for it if you two are going to just drag this out, man.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Listen, I know times have moved on, but if Leonard and Hearns and Ali and Fraser and all the other great rivalries down the years had this same attitude and hubris and ego, then none of those fights would have got made. Because I just, looking at that situation from the outside, I can't help but think that egos have played a large part in this fight not getting made. This kind of desire, I'm my own boss, I'm the A side. It's all that kind of legacy from the Floyd Mayweather era, isn't it? And even Canelo as well, where this sort of need to be the A side to make fights and you're the B side. And you know what I mean? It's just like, it's got to the stage now, man, and where I'm like, you know what? If you don't want to fight, guys, as you said, Daryl, step aside, let the young guns go for it, and let's see how they do. Let's hope that they don't adopt the same attitude and practices that you two did, Crawford and Spence. Maybe they might learn from this as well, because listen, they're both losing out, aren't they? Yep. They're losing out from a legacy perspective, because if they don't fight each other, you're still going to hear people say, yeah, but you never beat, if you're Crawford, yeah, but you never beat Spence. If you Spence, yeah, but you never did unify, you didn't beat Crawford. So they're the ones that's losing out, both from a financial and a legacy point of view. And, you know what I mean, that will always be a stain on their career, if you ask me.
Yep. I'm just tired, man. Tired of it, bro. No. Tired of it, man. For real. There is a fight happening this weekend, though. A big fight as well, taking place in Dubai. Shout out to my boy in Dubai, man. He's over there. He said that he's attending and Eddie Hearn Q&A. So he's out there today. He messaged me just before the show. So shout out to my boy Aaron over there in Dubai. Dimitri Bivol, Zurdo Ramirez, a fight that's been on the cards for a while. It's happening now. This is probably the second best fight you could have at light heavyweight. Am I wrong?
No, it's a great fight.
Bivol and Beterbiev would be the main one. But after that, you got Zurdo against one of the other two. And this is a big fight, man. Very big fight. Two unbeaten fighters. Bivol coming off the best win of his career. Ramirez, you know, confident, undefeated, been raring to go. He's wanted this fight for a long time. This is going to be a good fight, man. But one thing that I want to say, and I think the reason why some people are picking Bivol is the level of competition that Ramirez has fought compared to Bivol, I'd say, is left to be desired, maybe. You know, has he stepped up and fought that level yet? Bivol, you can say yes. He's been in that particular atmosphere. He's fought, all right, Canelo was the smaller man, but he still was in a huge fight. He's traveled, he's fought overseas. Maybe a bit more battle-tested than Ramirez, would you say? Is that a fair point?
Yeah, he's got guys on his record like Canelo. He came over here to fight Craig Richards. He's beaten Joe Smith Jr., which, you know, in hindsight is a very, very good win. John Pascal, Sullivan Barrera, he's unbeaten. He's not come close to losing, really, even against Craig Richards. But listen, man, Zurdo, it will be a stern test for him. Zurdo, I think his best win is probably against Jesse Hart, isn't it? Zurdo's best win to date. He's also beaten Sullivan Barrera. Listen, man, to me, this is a very close fight. I think they've sparred together as well. And from what I understand, I mean, I know it's only sparring. I know you're going to say that. But from what I understand, Zurdo did pretty well against Bivol in sparring, which has made him very confident, apparently, going into this fight. And listen, man, Zurdo's a big guy. He can box, he can punch. Unbeaten fighter like Bivol, very confident, very sure of himself, wants to win, so that he wants to avenge the win. He wants to win it back from Mexico. So, great fight, man. It's kind of gone a little bit under the radar, this fight. But I'm going to do my best to try and catch up with it over the weekend. I guess you've got to lean towards Bivol, but if Ramirez was to win, it wouldn't be the biggest upset in the world for me.
Not for me, no.
No. Because I think it's pretty evenly contested, although I would give Bivol the edge in terms of his resume, his experience. He's had less fights, but he's had the better experience, if you know what I mean when I say that. Maybe the slightly more rounded fighter, but you could see Zurdo giving him a lot of problems as well. So I'm leaning towards Bivol. But like I said, it wouldn't be the biggest shock if Zurdo was to outpoint him.
Have to agree with Francisco here. He's saying it as well. Zurdo's size, his power, and his, in particular, which I think will be very important, will be the work rate in this. Can he put Bivol in an uncomfortable situation? What he says here, that will make it harder for Bivol to control the distance. I still favor Bivol because of his jab and his footwork, but Zurdo is a live underdog. It's a monster fight. Anything can happen. Have to agree with that.
Look, but Zurdo's going to have to try and hurt him, man. He's not going to outbox him like that. He's going to have to make his physicality pay. So Francisco's right there. The size and power is going to have to be evident. So he's going to have to get inside because he's going to be the one trying to close the distance, I would have thought. Go to the body, rough him up, you know what I mean, make it uncomfortable for him. All those things that Canelo should have done but couldn't do. But obviously Zurdo's a much bigger man, so he might find it easier in that regard. If you can do that, unsettle him, shake him out of his game plan, then he has a chance, definitely, because he's
That's
good.
That's what Zurdo has to do for me. The success that Craig Richards had against Bivol was when he made it a bit uncomfortable for him, got on the inside a little bit, was not where he was, you know, mixing it up a bit more. Bivol was a bit rusty. I get that, but you can't let him settle into someone that's as good with the jab and, you know, so composed and measured as Bivol. You need to really make them uncomfortable and make them uncomfortable early. And I feel like Zurdo does have the capabilities to do that. And I think that's what he's going to have to do. I'm not saying be too reckless, but I'm saying he is going to have to, you know, make Bivol uncomfortable in there, not let him establish a rhythm and, you know, really set and frantic pace early. without being.
Yeah. Even if he doesn't set a frantic pace early, he's got to use his size and strength and get inside, rough him up. Like I said, try and make him respect his power. Basically, have Bivol backing off, and then obviously he's got to have a good finish. But I've seen Zerdo fight. He does everything well. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys. He's not outstanding at any particular thing, but he does everything well. So he will definitely be in this fight. And like I said, he has the ambition to really want to win this fight. So it's going to be a very competitive fight. I'm looking forward to it.
Since Bivol beat Canelo, man, you would think that would have propelled him onto, you know, I'm not saying superstar level, but it's almost like that win over Canelo has been forgotten a little bit. You know what I mean? I remember back in the day, and this is for the purists out there, you'll remember this one, but remember when Eric Morales lost to, what's his name? Raheem. What was his name? I can't remember. It was something Raheem. It was a slick.
Yeah. I do. Yeah.
And like, it was like really just a.
Zahir Raheem.
Zahir Raheem, yeah. It was in the midst of Eric Morales' prime, but people kind of just not almost chalked it off. They were just like, you know what, man, that was just a bad style. Throw Morales in with another opponent is fine. I feel like that's happened with the Bivol and Canelo win. Bivol not really getting the sort of flowers that he may have hoped after beating him, maybe. Or is that just?
I think there's a couple of reasons for that as well, though. Bivol is not the most demonstrative, not got the most engaging of characters. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. Looks like it, speaks well, but doesn't, you know what I mean, avail himself for interviews and stuff like that very much. You can't discount the fact that he's Russian. You know what I mean, Russian athletes at the moment, they're not getting a lot of love for obvious reasons. So there's a little bit of that as well. And like I said, he's just not media friendly, is he, at the moment? For a number of reasons. So that could explain a lot why he's not really taken off the way he should have done after such a big win. And let's face it, it wasn't just a win. It was a very convincing win. So like you said, you would have thought off the back of that, his star power would have risen, but seemingly not. But yeah, I mean, if he can get another win under his belt like this one, man, certainly the boxing world will take him even more seriously than now at the moment.
Just go and think about that Zahir Raheem fight, yeah? That fight, when he fought Morales, just reminded me, that was really just a warm-up for Morales fighting Pacquiao. And, like, Morales lost that fight, but they were just like, you know what, man, just fight Pacquiao anyway. It's almost like when Zab Judah, when he lost to Boldemir, and then they were just like, yeah, you can fight Mayweather anyway. You know, so yeah, that does tend to happen. I'm not saying Bivol is that level. Of course, he's a level above them, but yeah, for him,
I get the point.
You get what I'm trying to say, innit? Yeah,
I get the point. Boxing's not always about having the skills, you know. It's about how you're perceived, your character and stuff like that. That's why you get a lot of fighters now. They're very keen to access social media and develop a social media personality because in many ways, it's just as important as having the skills, isn't it? You've got to get your name out there, man. If you don't, and, you know, Bivol, he speaks very little English. Again, those kind of things can make it difficult for you to get accepted into the public consciousness in the West. So, for example, you notice Canelo, when he first started boxing, he didn't speak much English, did he?
No.
You listen to him now, man, he's very fluent in English. He's still Mexican, Spanish is his first language. But he's able to give fluent interviews in English. And that's definitely helped his persona and the way he's perceived across the world. You know what I mean? So that's definitely helped him grow as a star.
Your final prediction for this one then, Bivol-Ramirez, you see it a points
win? I'm going Bivol, a close points win. But I don't want to sit on the fence, and I'm not trying to be wise after the event. But if Ramirez was to edge it, it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world. But I am going for Bivol. Yeah,
I have to agree, man. I've got Bivol in this, like a 115, 113, maybe a 116, 112 at most type of fight. But I've got Bivol edging it. But like you, I would not be surprised at all if Ramirez was able to pull this off.
Who's promoting this card?
Well, it's joint, isn't it? Eddie Hearn and De La Hoya are both, promoting it. Obviously, De La Hoya representing Ramirez.
If it gets close, man, you could see that De La Hoya influence within.
Well, I mean, you got
judges
Eddie Hearn as well. Like, they're both on the same network, so it's quite interesting. Because,
but they might lean towards Golden Boy, man. They might see Golden Boy as a bigger entity. And let's be honest, if the powers that be will probably be hoping that Zurdo Ramirez wins, because that's a potential fight with Canelo, and then the belts are back in Mexico. You know what I mean? That's boxing politics will want Ramirez to win. Let's be honest. Let's be brutally honest about this. So that could be a factor if it's close. Yeah, it's no point in pretending otherwise. We know we know how these things run. If that fight goes down to the wire, and you know what I mean, there's some home cooking going on, I reckon it will go in favor of Zurdo. That's my prediction. So
okay. Daniel Chambers says press conference tomorrow. He's got a few fire emojis there. I don't think it's going to be one of them. It's not going to be no Chisora.
No, it's going to be.
But I get it.
There's not going to be much English spoken for a start, and it's not going to be very spiky or anything like that. And I know Eddie Hearn famously, he likes to promote fights where the fighters are going at it with his beef. I don't think you're going to see any of that tomorrow. Plus, Bivol seems a very respectful guy, and I haven't seen Zurdo throw his toys out the pram and be disrespectful to anybody. So it'll be quite a well-behaved press conference, i.e. one that doesn't sell. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
I'd say so. The undercard's all right, though. You've got Jessica McCaskill on there. You've got Zelfa Barrett on there as well.
Yeah.
So it's actually a good show, man, for the zone, which is not really doing the best right now.
Yeah, I mean, that Jessica McCaskill, Chantel Cameron fight be a real good fight.
Yeah.
So I've been impressed with Jessica McCaskill recently. I mean, I know she lost to Katie Taylor, but she's improved a lot since then. Chantel Cameron's also a good fighter, good skills, well coached. But McCaskill, man, she's tough. She throws a lot of punches, and she'll be bringing it. She'll be bringing it. And there's a little bit of needle developing between those two. I've seen interviews where they've both said they don't rate the other one and stuff like that. So, yeah, man. Maybe the ladies' fight might steal the show. You never know.
Yeah.
But no, I do think that the Zurdo versus Bivol fight will be a good fight, man. It'll be technical, but I think at points in that fight, the two fighters will have to let their hands go. You know what I mean? I think Zurdo's going to come and bring it in that so-called Mexican style. I think he's going to bring it, definitely.
Daniel Chambers just correcting it here. He's saying he meant Eddie and Oscar will be the source of entertainment, not in particular the fighters at the press conference tomorrow. So
yeah.
I have to agree with that. Yeah, there'd be more banter between them two than obviously the fighters for sure.
Let's hope that Oscar shows up sober.
I think he will out there, man. I don't think he can really take the piss out there. You know what I mean?
Well, you never know with Oscar, man. He's quite a maverick.
Yeah. But listen, man, we're going to wrap it up for today anyway, man. Another great show. Next week, of course, we'll be streaming again. We'll try and get a reaction video after this weekend's fights for sure. But looking forward to Bivol against Ramirez, man. It's been one that's been on the radar for quite a while. And, we have to applaud when these fights are made. Do you know what I mean? So looking forward to it this weekend. Anything you want to say before we close out today?
No, you pretty much said it, man. Like you said, I am looking forward to that fight. A real tradesman fight. You know what I mean? Everybody who is familiar with the fighters knows about these two guys. They'll be wanting to watch this fight. And, and the undercard is good as well. So, yeah, fair play to Eddie Hearn, man. He's putting on shows all over the world. You know what I mean? There's not many promoters that can do what he's doing, if we're being honest. He has copped a lot of stick in recent weeks, and rightfully so. I think the way he's handled that whole Conor Bin thing has left a lot to be desired, and he has to take his fair share of the blame in that. But you've also got to give him credit. He's globe-trotting around the world, putting on shows, good fights as well. So, yeah, when he does well, you have to give him his credit.
Sure. Listen, guys, thank you for watching anyway, man. Smash that like button on the way out. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We will catch you guys next week, man. Peace out.